Welcome, history buffs and comedy lovers. Can you imagine a punishment so intense that it was only used twice by the nation that did it? Where you were laid on your belly, had your ribs cut out from your spine, and your lungs pulled out through the opening? No? Well, this was the real last resort for our historical horn heroes, the Vikings. And what animal do you think they named this grisly punishment after? Roadkill? A dead bug? A rack of ribs Sunday special? No, it was in fact the mighty eagle. As the lungs inflated over the ribs, it looked like the wings. Such a poetry. Who said you cannot be an artist in death? Today, we are looking at some of the cruelest punishments in history, and one thing is guaranteed: these will hurt more than being covered in paper cuts and lemon juice whilst walking across Legos. Picture ancient minds brainstorming ways to turn agony in an art form, because apparently discomfort was an Olympic sport. From medieval contraptions to ancient punishments so inventive that they could be straight out of a horror movie marathon. These methods are a grim testament to human creativity gone horribly wrong. In at number 9, we have the not so imaginatively named rat torture. Let's rewind to the 16th century, to the times of the Dutch Revolt, where Dutch leader Diederik Sonoy is first recorded to have used this spectacular method to torture Spanish prisoners. Imagine being strapped down while a metal cage containing a few hungry rats is placed on your exposed belly. The torture then heats the cage, sending the rats into the panic frenzy. With nowhere to go but down, they start burrowing through the only escape route available: your flesh. It's the kind of scenario that will make even the most hardcore horror movie fans squirm. One minute you're contemplating the meaning of life, the next you're a human chew toy for rodents. You would think that this method's brutality would ensure it remained in the past, but it was used as recently as 1970 in South America. It shows that even in the darkest of times, humans could always invent new ways to be absolutely horrendous to each other. Rat torture truly was a punishment that really gnaws at you. Welcome back to our channel, where we make history fun with a little comedy thrown in just for the laughs. So without further ado, it's back to the brutality. In at number 8, it's the Spanish donkey. And while this might sound like a cocktail, it certainly left you feeling worse than just a hangover. Whose bright idea was this, you ask? None other than the Spanish Inquisition, who used it to gather confessions in the 15th century. But its popularity spread like a wildfire, being used in Canada and America well into the 1800s. Picture this: a wooden beam shaped like a narrow inverted V, as inviting as a cactus to sit on. The victim, unlucky enough to be sentenced to this contraption, is forced to straddle it, with weights tied to their feet for extra bit of agony. The result? A slow, excruciating split like doing the world's worst yoga pose. It's the kind of experience that makes you rethink any complaints about uncomfortable chairs or a tough day at the gym. So, the next time you grumble about your workout, remember the Spanish donkey. Proof that in the old days, leg days had a whole different meaning that really drove a point home. Climbing to number 7, we move more into mind-bending madness with Chinese water torture, where a single drop can drive you crazier than a Wi-Fi outage during a binge-watching session. So this originated from Italy. Bet you weren't expecting that. What won't surprise you is that a lawyer came up with it, a guy named Hippolytus de Marcellus in the late 15th century, who named it Chinese water torture to make it seem more exotic and scary. Now labeled war crime, it allegedly still occurs as an enhanced interrogation techniques across the world, although its bigger brother waterboarding is now more popular. So what actually happens in this imported interrogation method? Well, imagine being strapped down, unable to move, while cold water drips onto your forehead at irregular intervals. It's like Mother Nature's way of giving you a slow, inevitable headache, one drop at a time. The genius here is in the simplicity. No elaborate devices or bone breaking required. Just you, a steady drip, and the slow realization that sanity is slipping away faster than an ice cube in the Sahara. It is the kind of torture that makes you appreciate even the worst elevator music or endless customer service holds. Torturers probably got a kick out of watching the victim slowly losing it, turning drip, drip, drip. So, next time you're annoyed by a leaky faucet, just be grateful it's not aimed at your forehead while you're tied down for eternity. Up in number 6, we have the Romans' idea of a really good time. It's the breaking wheel. You know, society was really filling its cups when its leader, Emperor Commodus, decided on a wine-filled whim that the perfect way to torture Christians was to use a wheel, as a cross would be too like their Lord and Savior. And just as quickly as it has cotton for transportation, so it too did it as a method for torture, being used all over the world up until just over 200 years ago. So what was the genius spin on the original design? Imagine being tied to a massive wheel, limbs spread like you're auditioning for a particularly gruesome circus act. The torturer then smashes your bones with a hammer, turning you into a human pretzel, one agonizing crunch at a time. It's like a twisted game of Wheel of Misfortune, where every spin lands on excruciating pain. As if the bone crushing wasn't enough, the victim was often left displayed on the wheel of public viewing. Talk about medieval Instagram moment. Check out this week's feature contortionist. The breaking wheel was the ultimate lesson in cruelty, proving that even centuries ago, people had a knack for inventing horrors that made modern inconveniences seem like a day at the spa. So next time you're stuck in traffic, remember, at least you're not on the wheel. Into the top 5, we have the contentious Pear of Anguish, a device that takes the concept of a bad day to a whole new level. Now, we think these existed in the 17th century because there are some written accounts, but there is some debate about how these were used. One make it a sore situation and the other an intense agony. So see what you think. Picture this: a metal pear-shaped instrument, deceptively harmless at first glance, but with a twist. Literally, inserted into the victim's mouth or other unfortunate orifices, the torturer would turn a screw, causing the pear to expand. It's like medieval orthodontist meets the horror show. The device's expanding segments stretch the victim's body in ways that would make a contortionist wince, proving that sometimes fruits are really bad for your health. Now, one lot of smart people think that these went into your mouth as a way of gagging you as if someone was robbing you. Others think that they were placed a little further south and tore through your undercarriage. Either way, it's fitting that the victims are split on the issue. But if it was the latter, torturers might have happily turned the screw while saying, "An apple a day keeps the doctor away." In at number 4, we have the Scaphism, whose spelling is nearly as painful as the punishment itself. The peak of Persian brain power. This was the most horrifying picnic in history, reserved for those only who really bugged them. Picture this. Or actually, don't. It's kind of painful and disturbing. But anyways, you're sandwiched between two boats or hollowed out tree trunks, force-fed milk and honey and then slathered in it and left to the elements. Your face blisters in the sun and the sweet sunscreen you have been bathed turns you into a human buffet for every single insect within a mile radius. As you lie there, becoming the main course of a swarm of bugs, all those liquids you were force-fed earlier play havoc with your digestive system, causing unimaginable diarrhea, which attracts yet more bugs that worm their way into you. Each day, your body decomposes a little bit more while you are still alive to feel every painful moment. What the bugs and bacteria start, birds and birds finish, at which point you have hopefully passed before becoming the ultimate snack bar. Scaphism is a grim reminder that when it comes to torturers' creativity, the ancients really went the extra mile. So next time you complain about a mosquito bite, just remember, it could be worse. 3, we have the rack, a torture device that really knew how to pull a confession out of you. Originally the brainchild of the ancient Greek, this agonizing apparatus reached peak popularity in the Middle Ages. The Duke of Exeter was such a fan of using it on women, it was nicknamed the Duke of Exeter's daughter, and was also used by the Spanish Inquisition. So what horror was this? Well, imagine being tied down, arms and legs secured, while a torturer cranks the mechanism, slowly pulling your limbs in opposite directions. It's like the worst yoga class ever, where the instructor's only goal is to help bring you new heights of agony. As your joints pop and muscles stir, you might wonder how you ended up in this medieval chiropractor's nightmare. But that was the best treatment you could get, because the rack opened you up much worse. It was also used for restraint. So a manner of other fun things could be inflicted upon you in the prone position in between pulling parties. From getting your nails pulled out, being burnt, or having spikes driven into your spine, you would be lucky to survive such a sesh. And whilst Britain outlawed this in 1708, it was only in 1984 that this and torture like it was banned on a worldwide scale. So the next time you complain about being sore after a workout, just remember that back then they really knew how to stretch the limits of a human endurance. In silver, second it is the device that inspired many rock and rollers, the Iron Maiden, a torture device that combines the joy of a stone coffin with the embrace of porcupine. Invented in the Middle Ages, right? Wrong! They preferred their torture a little more straightforward. The Iron Maiden was actually thought to be around in the late 1700s. So what is this interesting sounding mechanism? Think of a human-sized metal coffin, lined with spikes that are strategically placed to avoid your vital organs but maximize your agony. It's like getting a long hug from a really angry cactus. Each spike makes sure you're uncomfortable but alive just enough to really appreciate the pain. Horrifically, these have remained popular throughout history, making the news as recently as 2003 when one was found in the headquarters of the Iraqi National Olympic Committee, where it is thought that they may have been torturing underperforming athletes. So the next time you feel scared and closed in a crowded subway, remember the piercing experience of the Iron Maiden. And finally, in the gold medal position, the most cruel of all of our punishments throughout history is the Brazen Bull, where ancient brutality meets barbecue. Invented by the entrepreneurial Greeks in the 6th century BCE, this deathly art turned misery into melody. How it worked was that the victim was stuffed into a hollow bull-shaped metal statue with only a few small air holes. The torturers then lit a fire beneath the bull, turning it into a real-life oven. As the heat rises, you're roasted slowly, going out in the blaze of glory. But there is more. The designer also fitted tubes to the inside of the bull, so that the sufferer's scream were changed into the sounds of a snorting and bellowing like a bull. It gave dinner and a show. It was like being stuck in the world's worst slow cooker where the only thing on the menu is suffering. So next time you complain about a hot day, just be grateful it's not a grilling experience of the Brazen Bull. It exists as a dark reminder that medieval chefs really knew how to turn torture into a fancy experience. And there you have it, folks, the 9 worst torture methods in history where human creativity took a dark and twisted turn. These gruesome practices remind us of a time when cruelty knew no bounds and pain was an art form. So next time you stub your toe or wait in a long line, take a moment to appreciate the relative comfort of a modern life. Just be grateful, okay? Next time be grateful for everything. So here's to hoping these nightmares stay firmly in the past where they belong. Stay safe and may your days be torture-free.